We want to plug you into a community of entrepreneurs, hustlers, world changers that can support you along the way and can be your role models, your mentors, your motivators, and your accountability buddy. Hey everybody, welcome to the Abroaders Travel Podcast, your weekly meetup with thousands of entrepreneurs, hustlers, creators, nomads, ninjas, wanderers, and world changers, all seeking to build the skills and connections to live a life without borders. If you want to learn more about what we do or download our entire podcast archive, check out the website, abroaders.com. Happy Wednesday morning and welcome to another episode of the Abroaders Podcast. I'm Erik, checking in from Salvador, Brazil with AJ in Detroit, Michigan. This one is episode number 70 and you're going to find show notes at abroaders.com/why. Today we're going to be getting philosophical and talking a little bit about why we started Abroaders and what we're hoping to achieve with you, our listeners. I recently wrote a mission statement to try and put into words what we hope to achieve and why it matters. Part of my inspiration to write that mission statement and record this episode was a book by Simon Sinek called Start With Why: How Great Leaders Inspire Everyone to Take Action. Sinek makes the case that many companies and organizations fail to inspire by talking about what they do and how they're different rather than focusing on why. So a traditional message from Abroaders might go something like this. We help you earn and use points for travel. That's the what. We can save you time, money, and get you a better flight experience than the other guys. That's the how or the differentiation. Want to buy our service? Where's the inspiration in that? And why should you follow us when there's so many other people trying to sell you something or doing roughly the same thing? Even if you did subscribe to our service or hire us for a one-time booking, are you really going to be inspired to tell your friends, to spread the word, to change the world? I'm not sure I would. So let's talk about why we get up in the morning. Abroaders is about democratizing travel, about making it possible for a normal person of average or even very low income to see the world. And we're not talking about a once-in-a-lifetime trip, a leap out of your comfort zone only to return to a job that you hate or a place that doesn't inspire you and doesn't challenge you to learn or grow or develop. When we talk about building a life without borders, we are talking about creating personal freedom and embracing the possibility of living your life on a global scale. This is about sustainable, purposeful travel and about a lifelong quest to connect with other people and to truly understand other places and other cultures because you took the time to be there, to listen to the people who live there and have lived that experience. Once you start that journey, you don't just have friends that live in the next town or the next state. Your friends are in Berlin, Germany, or Tokyo, Japan, Barcelona, Spain, or Cape Town, South Africa, Melbourne, Australia, or Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. They live in the places that you love the most in the world, or maybe in the places that you've never even been because you met that person at Carnival in Brazil, or Oktoberfest in Germany, or hiking Machu Picchu. We want to lead a community that believes in travel, but believing in travel, like almost anything else in life, is not enough. The idea of location-independent entrepreneurship is on the verge of exploding. 10 years ago, very few people were traveling the world and running a business from their laptop. And now there are hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people who have chosen this path. We realized that we could either watch it happen or we could be a part of it. And better yet, we could help lead others and inspire others to be a part of that movement. We started Abroaders to take part in something that we believe in, and also to make you believe that it's possible for you to join that movement right now. To take those first steps and furthermore believe that an ordinary person can choose to become extraordinary. And I know that sounds like one of those empty inspirational quotes with a beautiful picture on a poster that you put up in cubicle hell and look at when you're daydreaming about getting out of your job. But when you actually see ordinary people doing extraordinary things over and over and over, it's impossible not to believe in it. Entrepreneurship for us is the engine that creates that personal freedom. But not everybody has to start their own business. There are tons of jobs out there that treat employees like real people and give them the freedom to explore, to take vacations, and even to work from the road. If you've found that professional calling, we're here to challenge you to negotiate that extra vacation time or that remote work agreement. That totally reversible trial that Tim Ferriss talks about in the 4-Hour Workweek. Or maybe you've retired and you're looking for your next adventure. Or you're still in school and you haven't found your calling. We're here to challenge you to take that extra step to go outside your comfort zone and travel a bit further out into the unknown. We want to plug you into a community of entrepreneurs, hustlers, world changers that can support you along the way and can be your role models, your mentors, your motivators, and your accountability buddy. The idea of connecting people who are passionate about travel and changing the world, to borrow a term from Seth Godin, to build a tribe, this isn't an idea that we would dream of taking credit for. AJ and I at Abroaders are a product of those forces. We went to Brazil in 2010 and met Edelson Ness of the Mimic Method, Josh Plotkin from Brazilian Gringo, and realized that it was possible to be living somewhere else and doing something productive, creating a business, creating value for other people, and still enjoying travel at the same time. Then we went to Bangkok and met hundreds of entrepreneurs at the Dynamite Circle annual conference. And those people inspired us to believe that it was possible to achieve that personal freedom, that it was possible to build a business that would sustain a life of learning and of travel. After Bangkok, we went to Bali, Indonesia with a group of some of the most inspiring and impressive entrepreneurs I've ever met. They were all pursuing diverse and different goals, and they brought different experiences and skill sets to their respective crafts. But they all shared one common belief. That belief was that their business was a means to an end that was far more important than money. The common goal was to affect positive change in the world and put themselves in a position to learn from a broader set of experiences than could possibly be achieved vegetating in one little corner of the earth. You might recognize that last sentence from Mark Twain. He said that travel is fatal to prejudice, bigotry, and narrow-mindedness, and that many people need it sorely on those accounts. In addition to opening your perspective, we think that travel should be about networking. Most people think about networking in a really narrow-minded way. Networking is more people I know, the more people can help me achieve my goals or help me connect with the right people that can help me achieve my goals. Real networking is about affecting change in the world by helping other people. And the reality is that when your motivation is about positive change, those things come back to you in spades. Unless you live in a truly international city like New York, your opportunities to meet interesting people that share your passion for travel are extremely limited. And it's unlikely that the people who you need to meet most to take that next step in your personal or your professional development will ever come to you. Access to world travel with very little money puts that initiative in your hands to go and meet those people face to face and start building relationships that will last a lifetime. AJ and I recorded episode number 1 of the Abroaders podcast in Ubud, in a small community in Bali, Indonesia. We talked about helping other people achieve travel, and a lot of those beliefs are still part of our DNA. But I don't think we really understood or articulated the vision that would become Abroaders. And so we wanted to revisit it on today's show. We could not have gotten to this point without the help of our incredible but small team and countless mentors along the way. Adam, Phil, Janelle, Rosie, and Kate have all bought into this vision and have worked countless hours to help us deliver great content and help our band of loyal customers and listeners turn their points and miles into incredible travel experiences. Earning and using points is a means to an end, but it's an important one because it truly does democratize travel. If you don't have a couple $1,000s in the bank, it's pretty hard to take a trip around the world. Unless, of course, you know that you can leverage your credit in a sustainable way and build a balance of points that will let you travel when you want and where you want. If you do it well, you can get to a point where you can experience travel in a way that used to be reserved for the ultra-wealthy, to fly in first class and spend your connection time in airport lounges getting a massage instead of huddling on the floor by a power outlet. That type of travel is achievable for every single person listening to this show. And Abroaders is on a mission to make that a reality for as many of you as possible. We want to lead that tribe and put the incredible experiences that come with being a global citizen within your reach. We still have a long, long way to go, and each and every one of you that's listening today can help us spread this movement to other people who are just waiting to be inspired. Thank you so much for being a part of the Abroaders community. Alrighty, so we got AJ back after quite a long hiatus. We haven't been able to do a show together in a long time, man. I'm really glad to have you and excited to talk about some of this stuff with you.
Yeah, man, definitely excited to talk about this stuff. It's definitely long overdue. I kind of want to punch myself in the face that we haven't had this conversation with the community before. But yeah, man, why it's so important, man. The driver, that's so important. And kind of like Eric touched on earlier, I mean, why do we do this? Why do we wake up and grind away and work really hard at this? It's because we think it's important. It's because we love travel and we think travel is really important. And like our friend Rick from worldpackers.com says, travel changes people and people change the world. And Eric and I are in a position with our knowledge and the time that we can be able to commit towards frequent flyer programs to take a big stab at dramatically lowering the cost of the most expensive part of travel. There's big things we want to do in the future, but right now the way that we can serve our community and make an impact in the travel movement and the location independent movement is to just slash airfare prices because it's so damn expensive to fly international.
Yeah, I remember thinking when we were recording that first episode in Bali, and I'm kind of even afraid to go back and listen just because I know we were all over the place there and we really didn't know what this was going to become. But I remember that the biggest thing for me on that trip was just the sort of being stunned that we had done this ridiculous itinerary and only spent a couple $100 each. I'm really glad that we settled on focusing on the travel hacking aspect and on helping people use points to save money on travel, because it was the place that we actually did have an expertise and that we could share that expertise relatively easily, and that there weren't a lot of people doing it, especially in the podcast medium. There's some good blogs out there, but I think a lot of people want to listen to content or consume content sometimes in a different way than reading through websites. And so I'm glad we settled on that. And I think you're right that it's the opportunity that we have right now to put more people in a position to get out there and see the world and find out where that journey is going to take them.
Yeah, and it's really funny, man. As you would guess it, being able to travel is the reason that we're able to have a travel podcast. I don't know if you remember this, but the Dynamite Circle conference in Bangkok, the first one we went to, the whole theme was like, if you have a business and you want to build a community and you are not podcasting, you are a jackass. You need to be doing this. And that's something we'd never really thought about before. Like, man, that is way, way better. And I remember originally, too, because for anyone that's read any of my articles, I'm literate, but I'm not the smoothest writer. And it's just much easier for me to deliver content via just talking and shooting shit with you, man. And so it was just a really good way for us to start delivering some content without, having to edit, blog posts and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so what do you think is the most important first step that somebody can take? I'm sure there's some people listening to this that think that the vision and those ideas sound really cool, but it's one thing to sort of daydream about changing your life and starting to travel, and another thing to know what things you should be doing right now to make that happen. What are your thoughts on that?
Man, I think there's a few things. I mean, looking back, I think some of you guys know Eric and I were pretty bold, and I'm not saying that as a way to serve our egos. It was kind of stupid the way that we started our first business. We really just jumped right into, well, we're kind of smart, we're hard workers, let's just start a company, and we really didn't have any particular skills that would allow us to directly serve clients. So we served as middlemen and we're quasi website brokers, and it was just a messy operation. So I honestly think the biggest thing you need to do if you want to actually have some sort of company is to really, really develop a marketable skill set, whether that's designing websites or whether that's creating, beautiful HTML email designs, or just some type of skill set that you can easily package up and sell. And the nice thing about that is you can be building a skill while you have a job or while you're figuring stuff out. So I think that's the most important thing if you want to truly have your own company, because you can scale your skill. You can find other people that can do that, and you can become the manager and the owner as opposed to the owner of the company that does all the work, that does client relations and does the bookkeep stuff. So I think developing a marketable skill is the most important thing if you want to have your own business. But I do think there's a couple of other options that you can kind of fast track, but you're not going to be building as much equity in your future, which would be like teaching English.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I mean, I guess one thing to say about developing a skill set is I'd rather caution people against thinking that you have to be an absolute expert in something to be able to deliver value to a market. It's all about selecting the right market there. And, you're totally right that we had no idea what we were doing when we first started building websites. We started out, in a lot of cases, selling a website and then going on like sites like Craigslist or Elance and trying to hire people to make that site. So at the very beginning, we were in a spot of really knowing nothing, and that definitely hurt us both in terms of what we could charge and in terms of the frustration of being able to deliver. But that being said, really quickly, just the experience of going through that process a couple of times put us in a position where we knew more about getting a website online and about the basic things that you need for marketing your business online than 95% of the business owners that we talked to. And so those people, were maybe coming from a more brick and mortar traditional background. And even though we were not, we were far from amazing at SEO and optimization, just some basic things like, hey, do you have a contact page where people who want to get in touch with you online can do that? That's really easy, to sort of set that framework. And I think if you go through the process a few times, you learn enough to be a relative expert to some of the people that are potentially in your market. So I guess the takeaway is, yes, absolutely go to work at developing that skill set, but don't wait. Don't hold yourself down and say, oh, I don't have anything to deliver. I've got nothing of value unnecessarily, because a lot of times it just matters who the people are that you're reaching out to. And if you find the right market, there may be a big opportunity for you to help in a way that, it doesn't seem special to you, but those people need that skill or that service.
Yeah, and there's the being a relative expert thing. If you know more than the client and you can give the client what they want at a price they think is fair, bam, you've got a business,
And also, a lot of people are really busy and don't have time to get even the most basic stuff. So, if they're, they maybe could figure it out. It's not that what you're selling or what you're doing is impossible to learn. It's just that the business owner would maybe rather be doing other things or has more important things in their business they have to focus on. And so they're happy to pay you something to solve that problem for them.
Yeah. All right, man. So now we're talking about the people that are kind of, committed. They want the lifestyle and they're ready to make a move. They don't know which move. But what about people that may be not necessarily trapped, but they're in a tougher position to leave? Maybe they've got a job that pays them a nice salary and their lifestyle is kind of molded into a lifestyle that requires that salary to maintain it. What gives, man, for people that really don't, or maybe they like their job and they don't want to leave it, but they want more freedom?
Yeah, great question. So I think one of the things that really can't be overlooked is that you can often make an immediate impact on your needs for cash faster than you can build another source of income that replaces your old job. And so one of the first things that I think would be really valuable is to start looking at your life. If you do want to travel, start looking at the things that you might be able to eliminate that will make it easier to take a pay cut sometime in the future and still be able to maintain a good quality of life. And so, those are things like, maybe not signing up for a lease on a new Lincoln or a Mercedes, and instead, buying a used car with some cash that you can pay out of pocket, having that transportation taken care of, but being able to sort of, put that extra money away into a runway that you can use to start your new business. Another thing, maybe not signing that super expensive lease that's going to put you in an apartment that costs $1,000 or $2,000 a month. There's certainly going to be some restrictions, but while you're at your job and you're planning your escape or you're figuring out how to negotiate a remote work agreement or some sort of additional freedom, start cutting those other costs in your life so that you've got a little bit more breathing room when you do start to travel or you do start to take that next step.
Man, I think that's a really good point. And I think it's interesting too. You can save your way into starting a business, but you can't save your way into growing a business. So what I mean by that is you can definitely cut some costs and save some additional money that will give you an opportunity to put that money into a business or give you more money to live on while you're figuring stuff out. And that's great. And it's really funny because that's not the approach you can have with the business. You can never save your way into having a good business because revenue drives a business and you need to make money. And nobody became a billionaire you can't save your way positive. You can only cut your cost, So definitely, though, as far as people with traditional work, you can save your way into starting a company.
That's a really good point. What about sort of negotiating your remote work agreement or negotiating some sort of settlement with your boss? Not everybody's in a position where they have a great relationship there, but I really like the Tim Ferriss. I remember we talked about this a lot early on when we were starting our company, that totally reversible trial, using the psychology of this is not permanent. I'm not asking you to commit to something.
Do you think that's reasonable? Am I being reasonable?
Am I being unreasonable? Make someone call you unreasonable. I love that part, because who wants to tell somebody to their face that they're being unreasonable? It's awkward. It's really hard to do. So maybe one of the strategies there, it depends a little bit on your situation, but I think that if you can start out by negotiating, an extended vacation, spend a little bit more time away from the office and make that commitment, hey, look, I'm going to be gone for a full 3 or 4 weeks, but 2 of those weeks I'm going to be working. And these are the deliverables that I'm going to be accountable for, and exceed those expectations. Even if it means that you have to give up on a lot of the fun, a lot of the sightseeing on that trip, blow your boss's mind with the amount of productivity you have. And I think a lot of people will find that when they get the hell out of the cubicle and out of the 9 to 5, they're way more productive with 4 hours during the day than they ever were before with 8 or 10 in a regular work setting.
Yeah. One thing too, I'd say about that is, so if you're out there listening to this and you're really good at what you do, you're always on time, you hit your deadlines, you're a good person to work with, people around the office like you, and you see other people around the office that maybe aren't like that, your boss may not show his hand or her hand, but you're really important to them, and they're probably willing to play ball with you and give you a little bit more. And I mean, if you're out there and you do a great job, what's the risk in just saying like, hey, listen, I've done really great work, I think so, I'm going to continue to do really great work, but it would really mean a lot to me if I could have a little bit more freedom, whatever the reason is that you want. But then, like Eric said, the reversible free trial. And if you have kind of not maybe been the best employee, probably a good idea to buckle it up for a few weeks before you ask for something extra.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Maybe one of the other things to sort of keep in mind with this, and this might apply to some jobs, is not only can you work out ways that you can still deliver for your company while you're on the road, but also explore the opportunity to take the expertise that you learned in your job and do it as a freelancer, do it as a contractor. There's probably a lot of skills and unique information that you've learned through what you're doing as part of your job that could be a stepping stone or a leverage point to be able to get free. And so if you do end up in that situation where, for whatever reason, your boss is just not going to see eye to eye with you on that idea, at least you're putting yourself in a mindset where knowing that you can, figure out how you can get the same level of productivity or more while you're doing it on your own terms, and then figure out if you can sell that service or repackage that skill set into something that you can do as a freelancer, as an independent contractor, and go find the clients that's one of the great things about having a job to start is you can kind of see what the sales mechanism looks like, how your company finds clients that are paying for work that you're contributing to, and then figure out a way that you can still do that same thing and deliver at least a part of what your company does for their clients to independent customers that you find on your own once you save up that runway and have enough cash to make the jump.
Yeah, I would even go one further. And if you work at a place that's not reasonable and they're not willing to give you some reasonable things, if it's not a breach of contract, man, steal the clients. Who cares? Like, really? I don't know. I don't think that's necessarily unethical if it's not in the contract. Business is very competitive. Where you currently work, I'm sure, is very ruthless and cutthroat with who they believe to be their competitors. And if you've got that skill set and it's not going to cause you any legal issues, go ahead and ask some people to join you. You'd probably be surprised.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting approach. And personally, I definitely agree with you that that's not unethical in a lot of situations, especially if you give the people in charge at your company an opportunity to work with you. It's one thing to just out of the blue ditch what you're working on and go, strike out on your own, and a totally different thing to have had ongoing conversations with your boss for a better part of a month saying, this is what I need to be happy, this is what I need to be productive, and them just shutting that down and saying, this is how we do things, and if you don't like it, you can hit the highway. At that point, when you've already given that opportunity to be reasonable and work with you, I think then you're in a position to say, well, I'm gonna try and do this my way. So yeah, definitely worth considering. I wanted to ask you another thing. We've had kind of a crazy journey over the past couple of years, and I talked about a couple of things that for me were sort of formative as we were traveling that helped me kind of see the vision and figure out what we should be doing. Was there anything in particular that happened for you while traveling that made you kind of see the value that maybe you didn't realize was there before we took this jump?
Yeah, man, I really did. When we were in Bali with Danny, Scott, and Jimmy, it kind of just made it crystal clear that, traveling and a little bit of lifestyle design and being location independent wasn't just about scraping by and having a business that just covered the bills. You can be a very, very serious entrepreneur doing really big things, having a lot of success at a very young age, and you can still travel. There's no difference in working from Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam, as there is from working in New York if you're on your computer or doing whatever it is that you need to do. And that kind of made it clear that the whole traveling and working thing wasn't just kind of a dream that everyone was selling to one another, but it was a very real possibility. If you had some organization, it was very achievable.
Yeah, it put into focus, sort of the difference between lifestyle entrepreneurship and maybe a more pure version of entrepreneurship. I mean, I think that a lot of people on the outside looking in sort of see this type of business and think, well, that's great. Maybe you're selling a dream to a bunch of people and making enough money to live your ideal lifestyle, but you're not really creating value. And having those role models and also eventually developing them as mentors as well helped me to see that, some of these people are running businesses that make, maybe $1 million a year, and they're working their asses off. They're not running around traveling, working 10 or 15 hours a week. They're working 80 hours a week, but, not for 10 months straight. They're doing it in bursts, and they're enjoying an incredible quality of life when they're not, putting their nose to the grindstone, so to speak. And so I think that was inspiring to me that yes, absolutely hard work is required. Absolutely. If you want to build something of value, you've got to put the time in, but that it's possible to do that and to go, have success far beyond just being able to sustain travel while you're building a location independent business.
Yeah. How about you, man? Was there a time or a place where it kind of clicked to you, or you had a revelation along the same lines?
Well, I think, for me, definitely to a certain extent that first trip was life-changing for me, but also it's a continuum. It's a development of perspective that's continuing to happen for me over time. And I think even more recently, when I met David McKeegan in Rio de Janeiro, he does greenback tax services. So he's an accountant and his wife's an accountant as well. And they help location independent businesses manage their accounting. And they're extremely good at what they do. But the thing that struck me is that they were traveling in Rio with their two really young kids, both of them under 10 years old. And that was their lifestyle. They weren't just on a trip to Rio. They were living in Rio at that point in time, and they were going to be living on some other continent on the other side of the world, a few months down the road. And so seeing that not only is this something that can be done by, single 20-somethings that are just, wanting to go find adventure, but also can become a life perspective that carries with you into other phases of your life. That was really powerful for me. And then also, the interview that we did with Paul and Rebecca Cortman, I think it was episode 55 of the podcast, where, they talked about traveling the world with 4 kids. So a family of 6, just basically globetrotting. And, Paul talked a little bit about some of the challenges that they faced when they first tried to do that, kind of going on this first trip and running out of clients and having to kind of come back home to reset. And so it made me realize, definitely there are real challenges for everybody, regardless of situation, but that those challenges can be overcome. And it just requires a commitment to the idea that travel is possible and that travel doesn't have to interrupt everything else that's important.
Yeah, man, I totally agree. I mean, one final point that just kind of looking back, it's something you build equity in, and there's some big moments, but when you look back, it can be kind of amazing how much you've accomplished. Is the network aspect of this and how many interesting people you can meet. And I know you and I talk about networking a lot, and it's kind of almost like a dirty word. I think of people on LinkedIn sending requests so they can boast you as having been a person that vouches for them, and they can have their network, high and mighty, or they can use you in some way, shape, or form. But I don't know, you and I have a different kind of view about actual networking and what it means to network.
Yeah, well, let's start with kind of how we got our foot in the door, because we didn't just jump into having our own web design business that we didn't know anything about and have a whole bunch of connections out there ready to help us out and ready to help us learn the next step. We started out by, just looking up to other people that were, that we saw as in a place where we wanted to be. Obviously, weren't able to just go show up where they were and just, find them at a cafe and be like, hi, I'm Eric. I'd like to, I decided I'd come to Bangkok to meet you. Let's talk about that. I think you were kind of leading the charge for us in a lot of ways with reaching out to people online. What was the strategy there and when did it start to pay off?
Yeah, man. Well, the original thing was just consuming content online and kind of finding those, like Dan Andrews of the Tropical MBA. That's a really good example because that's been kind of the guy that introduced us to some ideas and into a community that we're still a part of. But I remember kind of how that started was I listened to the Tropical MBA kind of religiously and would follow the blog. And I remember he mentioned something about the Dynamite Circle one time. The Dynamite Circle has changed quite a bit since we joined and from before we joined. It's kind of evolved. But I remember it was, it was still something at the time you needed to apply for. And I remember thinking like, oh my God, man, this is home base. This is base camp. This is where all the people doing what we want to be doing are going to be. And that started by just me kind of bothering Dan with some emails, telling him how deserving I was and you were to be a member of this, and then finally becoming members of the Dynamite Circle. But that started just because there's a blog that I was really appreciative of and it had great information. And Dan was a guy, I'm like, shit, if this guy starts a community, that's a community I want to be a part of.
So that's really cool. And I think also, it's the outreach over time. A lot of people that are doing interesting and exciting things are super busy. And so you got to have a thick skin and not take a lack of response to some of your outreach attempts as rejection, and just keep chipping away. Just keep trying to deliver value. Send an email every once in a while that refers to something that they're doing and ties back into how that delivered value for you. And so I think some of the most successful outreach that I've had, especially to people that are sort of really high above where we are right now, folks that have an enormous level of success, those people are harder to reach and they have a ton of noise, a ton of background noise that's preventing them from finding you. And so if you can connect it to what they're doing and how it's impacted your life, people want to hear about that because, like we said at the beginning of the episode with the why and the mission, most people that are doing something exciting are doing so to have an impact on other people. And if you can connect with them by sharing how what they're doing, how that blog post changed the way that you thought about something important, then they're going to want to respond to that. And that's how you open that conversation up.
Yeah, man, I completely agree. And even thinking about that as you and I being guys in a position now that get some people sending us emails asking about stuff. Yeah, because we want to reach people. I'm much more excited to hop on a Skype call with somebody that said, hey, I love the podcast. It's helped me do this. I've booked a bunch of flights. And that would, these are people that aren't customers. They don't pay us any money, but we're still so happy to do that because that's the goal of the podcast is to give away good free content. And that's way different than somebody emailing being like, AJ, I've got 50,000 American miles. I'm having a tough time with this. What do I need to do? Now, if we have a call scheduled with somebody, we might ask them like, hey, what's the problem? And we'll help people solve the problem. But just like a cold email, just like kind of almost begging for something, I'm still like happy to talk with people that know about us. But it's much more interesting to actually know a little bit more about the person and why that, they find your stuff valuable or why they want to talk to you.
Yeah, it's a delicate balance too, because I think one of the big keys is to be really short and to the point when you're asking for somebody's time. And I'm not even talking about us here because I think we're still at a point, fortunately, where we've got enough time to respond to all the emails that come in, and that's a blessing, man. I love that, and I'm so happy to get a short response out to everybody that writes in, as whenever that's possible. And I think for some of those other people, it's not possible to go through everything. And so if you send somebody a page of all these different questions and you don't have anything prioritized, they don't know how to respond and they just delete or they just move on to the next email from somebody that's a little bit more to the point and has a real objective that you can get to the bottom of in a couple of minutes. And so that's one thing that I think is a really important takeaway is start the conversation slow, be precise about what you're asking and try and deliver some value if you can to them. A lot of times a great way to start a conversation is pointing out something that might have been wrong in one of their posts. posts, in a diplomatic way, like, hey, I saw this, the link's broken, or, I saw that this thing was broken on your website. I saw that you referenced this and I have this other opinion, or there's another resource that does a really good job of explaining this part that you kind of glossed over. That's value to them because they can now, update their post or make a change that makes their content that they created even more valuable. And it opens the door to start that conversation. And, maybe you do that. And then a couple of weeks later, you follow up about another post and you ask another question. And as that outreach becomes a dialogue and you're now going back and forth, now you've got an opportunity to build a deeper relationship. And that's where you can really become part of a community. And, not all of them have to be paid communities. Dynamite Circle is a paid community. And that's not the only option. I know that you were super active on a couple of Facebook groups and a couple of other, totally free online forums and areas. And that's a way to reach out to people. And I guess the last thing that I wanted to mention is that those entrepreneurs were in a position where not only are we, fortunately able to help a lot of people with achieving their travel goals, but people that write in also deliver huge value. I can't tell you how many times somebody's pointed out something that we've missed. Hey, did you hear about this offer? And, we do a really good job for the most part of keeping on top of stuff related to points and travel, but it's a massive amount of information to go through. And we do miss stuff all the time. And so when somebody reaches out to us and says like, hey, I noticed that there's, offer X, and I haven't heard you guys talk about it on the show, that's a huge value add for them to point that out to us. And so if you can find a way to structure your outreach in a way that does that, I think you're going to be really successful.
Yeah, man. A quick example about that. It was about a year ago. There's a blogger I was following, and I saw on their mobile site that their YouTube video was all jacked up. It wasn't responsive. It wasn't formatting correctly, and I knew how to do that really quick. And I remember I shot an email. Hey, I love your stuff. Your YouTube video is all out of whack on mobile device. I'd be happy to hop in there and fix it for if you want. Oh, sweet, man. Hopped in there, opened up the CSS style sheet, added the additional CSS, tossed in the necessary HTML, and it was
another good reason to build that skill set. You never know when it's going to come in handy and maybe put you in a position to start a conversation with someone. And then ultimately, the last thing that we didn't really bring full circle here is close on those opportunities to have face-to-face meetings, because that is where the relationship really starts. And so if you've got a conversation going and somebody's announcing an event, or they, a lot of people publish on their blogs where they're traveling to, what they're going to be doing, jump on the opportunity. If you've got an easy way to get there, and it certainly helps to have a bunch of points saved up. If they're going to be in New York and you don't live that far away and you can be there, see if you can get a meeting and, let them know, hey, it's really easy to kind of bluff that as well. Like, hey, I'm going to be in New York as well. Would it be okay to schedule a meeting? Yeah, sure. I mean, could you get burned and end up having them cancel on you at the last minute if you do it that way? Sure. But, there's probably more than one person that you can meet up with in a city like New York. And so if you kind of bulk schedule those and figure out a time that it makes sense for you to actually make that trip, then you can capitalize on those opportunities to have an in-person meeting and really take things to the next level.
Yeah, man, that's really good stuff. Do you want to get into a little bit about what we're going to do to try to get our community a little bit closer? So for everyone out there, we've actually shared a lot of emails. We've had a bunch of Skype calls with people. We've got really, really cool people in our community, but we have failed the community in an immense way by doing nothing to connect our community with one another. So what we're doing is we're going to have community experts. This is a geography-based thing. So what we're looking for is we're looking for people that, whether it's a city you live in and you're passionate about your city, and good spots to eat, drink, or explore or see, or you've lived somewhere for a while, we're looking for people to reach out to us and let us know if you would be interested in being a community expert. And so what this really means is you need to have a really good grasp of your city, and you need to be willing to have your contact information up on our website in a directory where our community will be able to say, hey, you know what, I'm going to Berlin. Let's see if there's an abroader in Berlin. Bam, there's a guy right there, contact information, a little bit about him or herself. So that is something that we're going to do, and you can find that at abroaders.com/expert.
Very cool, man. Yeah, so we're going to create just a page for you guys to register, and we'll just ask a little bit about you. So tell us a little bit about yourself and let us know what area you have expertise and can help others with. And, you can kind of choose the type of contact information you want to share, whether that's email or Skype or something like that. And once we have kind of a critical mass, a core group of people, we'll publish that list on the website so that you guys can reach out out and hopefully have somebody on the ground that can help you with that. I'm really excited about this idea. I hope you guys buy into it and help us create this resource because, even if we travel all the time, we're never going to be able to achieve true knowledge about everywhere that's worth traveling to. And so by connecting the members of the community to each other, this is going to be an incredible way that you can get on the ground, hands-on knowledge of a place before you go, and also potentially be plugged into a pre-existing network there. If you've got somebody that's that community expert that's already there, they're going to have other friends in the community they can put you in touch with as well.
Yeah, I want to add one more thing. Even if you live somewhere that you think is boring or you don't think is interesting, I don't care if you live in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, or Paducah, Kentucky, or Billings, Montana. Go ahead, if you know your city, go ahead and register because you never know who's going to drop in. And I mean, that's something I would love for this resource to be something where before I go anywhere, even if it's like a bogus meeting in a suburb outside of Indianapolis, Indiana, just check it out. See if we've got anyone there. At the least, have a drink or have lunch or something. It could be a really cool concept that we could, grow collectively.
I love that you have that obscure list of places like Oshkosh and
those are
Billings.
Former teammates, man. Eric Roof played a little bit of pro ball with the Tigers organization. If you're out there listening, that's a shout out for Paducah. It was a baseball family. The three brothers all played pro ball. And then Chris Roberts from Oshkosh, Wisconsin. Eric Rose, Billings, Montana. So if you guys are listening, hope you're well.
Cool, man. All right. So I've got a couple of announcements before we sign up for today's show. We usually do these at the top, but wanted to jump right into some of the content about what we're up to and why. So there is a new sign-up offer for the Chase Inc. Plus business card. They've increased the sign-up from 50 to 60,000 points after spending $5,000 in 90 days. So if you don't already have that card, that's definitely now is the time to get on that. And if you do already have that card, you should know that it is possible to sign up for one for each business that you have and also use your social security number to apply for one as a sole proprietor. So for example, AJ and I could have a Chase Inc. Plus for our web design company, which has a EIN, and also for our Broaders. And if we wanted to, we could even have another one that's under one of our or both of our social security numbers. So there's a lot of opportunity to get a couple of those cards if you do it right. And the other thing about the Chase is they used to have a product called the Ink Bold, which was a charge card rather than a credit card. And if you do have the Ink Bold, you can change to the Ink Plus. You want to still apply for a new account in the same way you'd apply if you've never had one of the cards at all. And they may ask you, on the reconsideration why you want to, opt into the Ink Plus. And instead of saying that you want the bonus points, which is a very bad answer, you can say that you want the ability to carry a balance, which you really shouldn't do, but it's definitely okay to tell the bank that you're thinking about it because they love the idea of getting that interest. And so the difference there is the Ink Bold you have to pay off every month at the end of the statement. When it's due, and you can't run a balance at an interest rate. With the Ink Plus, you can carry over a balance from month to month. So if you tell them you're considering that and want some flexibility for some extra cash flow, they'll probably see dollar signs and end up approving you for the old card and maybe closing out your old Ink Bold card as kind of a compensation to open the new account. So that's a good strategy there. The other card I wanted to mention is the Alaska Airlines Visa from Bank of America. This one's been around for quite a long time, and the offer has been as high as 40 or 50,000 points. It's currently at 25,000 points, but it is on card approval, so there's no spending required, which is really nice if you're packaging it in with some other signups that are maxing out your regular ability to spend. And you should also know that this card is highly churnable, so you can have like 5 of these cards. I don't even have one, and I'm certainly thinking about getting it, but it's possible to get lots of these cards and sort of stack up those Alaska Airlines miles. You should also note that we're going to have a link to our page in the show notes, and you don't want to click straight through to the sign up from our page. There's going to be a link to a blog post as well that explains how you can get an extra $100 statement credit with a little bit of extra work. Basically, you just need to go to the Alaska Airlines website and sort of start a booking. And as you're in the process of like checking out for your booking, it's going to pop up a little advertisement that includes that $100 statement credit. So basically, it's a free $100 if you're willing to spend an extra 5 minutes waiting for that ad to pop up, and you'll get a better offer than you would if you just go to the Bank of America website.
Man, that's good stuff. Really good stuff.
Cool. Well, let's wrap it up here. One quick reminder, if you haven't done so already, head over to abroaders.com/learn. We are building a Udemy course for all you do-it-yourselfers out there, pouring in every little bit of knowledge that we've gained over the last 5 or 6 years of using points and earning points for travel. And we've got a couple of special offers that are only available to people that pre-register for the course before it goes live. We want to have some of the people in our community sort of test this course out and help us improve it before we release it out to the general public, send it out to the world. So if you're willing to be one of those early adopters, you can get some extra benefits, including a consultation with either AJ or myself to talk about your personal point situation, including a consultation with AJ or myself to talk about your personal situation with cards and points and get some customized advice as far as what you should be doing for your next trip. All you got to do is give us your name and email for the registration. It just takes a couple of minutes, and we will make sure that you are the first to know when the course is finished.
And you can give us your name and email at abroaders.com/learn.
All right. Thank you all you guys for being with us this week and for being a part of our community. Look forward to many more very fun conversations and podcasts to come. This week's International Jam is an oldie but a goodie. I was listening to the Feel Good, Have a Good Day playlist on Spotify, and this guy popped up and I just couldn't resist. This one is called I Can See Clearly Now. It is by Jimmy Cliff. I didn't realize he was born in Jamaica, so it truly does count as an international jam, and definitely one to start your day on the right foot. I hope you guys enjoy. AJ and I will be back next Wednesday, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard.
Hey, be a community expert. Abroaders.com/expert. Share your expertise with the community. Abroaders.com/learn. Get some sweet deals and a coupon code on our Udemy course.
All right, guys, wherever you are, travel safe.
Cheers.
Yes, I can make it now. The pain is gone. All of the bad feelings have disappeared.
Hey, brothers, don't be shy. Hop over to the website and join our email list for exclusive travel hacking content. If you like what we're up to, the best way you can support the show is by leaving us a 5-star review on iTunes. Lastly, we would love to hear from you, so send your show feedback to Erik or AJ at abroaders.com. We will see you next week.